Here's 5 things that might be causing your internet to run slow or have intermittent loss of connection. And here we go. Here are 5 examples of network problems that you can identify yourself, and I'll go through how you can find these issues. These are by far the most common issues I come across in networking, causing network slowness, causing intermittent loss of connectivity. Number one, something having to do with your internet service provider. A lot of times your internet service provider is not giving you the proper download speeds that you're paying for, and which is in a contract with you and the internet service provider. And I encounter that quite often, actually. Number two, something having to do with the wireless access point, be it you have poor signal strength and that wireless access point transmission is not quite reaching you because something is blocking, or there's too many walls, or the distance, or maybe there's too many devices connected to that. So it's good to know how many devices are actually connecting to that WAP. Number three, an IP address conflict. There are multiple different kinds of IP address conflicts, but I'm going to address the one I see that is most common causing issues. Number four, a problem with the individual computer, meaning that computer is just old or has a bad hard drive or has spyware, and that's making it seem like there's poor connectivity to the internet because when you open up a browser, it's still running really slow. So here's just a simple way I'll show you later on how you can address those. Number five, poorly managed cabling or equipment. We'll go over that as well. So first, your internet service provider. You want to be able to check your streaming quality. Just that's an easy way to just pull up a YouTube video, pull up a song or a music video, and just play it. Does it play smoothly? Is there hiccups? Is there drops in how it plays? This can help you weed out certain problems in the network and direct you more to what the problem is exactly. In conjunction with that, you'll probably want to do a speedtest.net. Really easy to do. Pull up a browser. It's good to know in advance what kind of speed you're paying for from your ISP, your internet service provider, before you accomplish this. Okay, I'm going to hit the go button at speedtest.net, and we're going to check out my download speed. It looks like it's running a little bit slow just because I'm really resource heavy right now. My wireless rate is 65 megabits per second down, and we'll check my upload speed. If you're wireless over wired, you're always going to be a little bit slower. Plus, I have my door closed, and I know it's going to go through another wall. But for me, this rate is pretty much what I'm expecting. Now, if it's something like 5 or 10 or less megabits per second, that's going to be extremely low and in most cases unacceptable. So watch for that. Next, if you can, you want to log into your wireless access point and be able to check for, there should be a way to get in by IP address of your wireless access point and check how many devices are connected to that device. If it's your router, that's your wireless access point. Same thing, you can log into your router and see what all is connected to it as far as computers, mobile devices, whatever it is. But it's good to know which users are connected, what computers, and what they're doing. Are they streaming Spotify? Are they streaming YouTube? Are they wasting your time? Just kind of know what your users are doing. IP address conflicts. So you want to make sure that if a computer has a static IP address assigned in the network properties of that computer, and when I say that, I'm talking about going into network settings, change adapter options, and whichever adapter that you're using at the time, whether it's wired or wireless, and a computer might have a statically assigned IP address under Internet Protocol version 4 properties. And here we can see everything's automatic. So they're using DHCP. But if something was static here, this is where it would show up very clearly different IP addresses. You want to make sure if an IP address is statically assigned under the properties of the computer, that it's also statically assigned on the router. Here's an example of that. I'm going to log into my router by using my router's IP address. This is the internal IP address, not the external. And I'm logged in here. And for my ASUS router, I can go into LAN, DHCP server. It's got a really easy way. And most routers nowadays, if it's a new router, if it's relatively new, like in the last couple of years, last 5 years even, it should have this feature where you can look up what all is connected to your router, what else connected to your network, pick out a device and assign it. Here's just for an example. Assign it a static IP address. So this is saying right now this device has this IP address, and do you want to make it static to always allocate that IP address to that device at all times? So if a computer has an IP address statically assigned, do the same thing in the router. So here I have 2 devices that are statically always assigned, always allocated these IP addresses. And that's good because I know that my router isn't going to make the mistake of assigning the same IP address to another device on the network, which can cause all kinds of problems with losing connections. And that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. So most routers have that ability. Like I said earlier, there's easy tests that you can see if a computer is running slow, and it has nothing to do with your router or connectivity or network at all. So some of the easiest ways to do that is go into your search bar, and you want to do resource-heavy tasks for your computer that don't involve the internet, and just check the speed, check for latency. So one is you can type in system information. Okay, and when I see system information is highlighted, I just hit the enter key. Okay, so that was a little bit of latency there, and I'm using up a lot of resources running the video production, so I'm expecting a little bit, but you don't want to be expecting really any more than that. Now, if you're not doing something resource heavy and you're seeing a delay pulling up system information of like 5-10 seconds, that's really too much, and you might expect that that's also going to have a delay on your internet connectivity. Okay, another one is I could do CON for control panel. I'm going to hit enter. When this comes up, I'm going to go to uninstall program. Now this list to populate, if your computer is running smoothly, it's going to be pretty instant. If your computer is not running smoothly, if there's something just wrong with that individual computer, that list is going to take a moment to populate, and that's going to be very telling to the effect it might have on your internet speed as well for that individual computer. What I call an app blitz is you can pretty much just go through and open up many things at once. And I don't want to use HP Smart right now. And I can close all of these things. I see how quickly they open, and I can close them all again. They should be pretty instant. Nothing should be having too big of a delay to close everything back. Same thing with opening it. And so that's also really telling. If that app blitz causes a huge delay, whether it's opening or closing your apps, that'll also be very telling. So poorly managed cabling equipment can definitely cause transmission problems on your network. You want to make sure that you don't have any what's called network loops in your cabling. That's where you've got a lot of crazy cabling going on, and it can be hard to recognize that one of these cables is coming out of a piece of networking equipment, like a switch, and going right back into itself. So that causes network loss of connectivity for sure. It can cause huge problems with your network. It may seem just your network has gone haywire and just everything's crazy. So you want to, sometimes in order to weed those out, if you have a lot of cables, sometimes it requires unplugging all of them. And that sounds crazy if you have like 100 computers, but a lot of times people like me have to do that. It's like a regular thing that we have to do sometimes. We have to unplug all the cables and one by one plug them back in. And when we finally find a problem cable, we leave it out and we mark it. You want to make sure your equipment is not more than 7 or 8 years old. Once it's getting more than like 6, 7 years old, when you're talking about routers and switches, that's really too old. It's really just time to replace it, and you might expect there to be problems on the network at that age. Same thing with computers and mobile devices. Once something runs about 6, 7 years old plus, you're going to kind of expect that to have problems. Again, you want to look for what your users are doing and make sure that there isn't one guy on the network streaming Spotify all the time that's causing problems for everybody. So you want to know what your users are doing. Last, if the issue is not any of the above and you're still having problems with one wire device, you may have to look into getting a cabler out and just run some new cable and install a new jack. That's not going to be the funnest option. It's not always going to be the cheapest option. But if you've checked out everything else and everything else is looking good, that's the obvious next step. If you're still having problems, write to me, jeremy@morgansystems.net, and I'll help you out. Thank you. Thanks for watching.